I never thought I'd find myself sitting here, typing out something so raw and angry, but here I am. My name's Dave, and honestly, I'm still trying to figure out how everything spiraled so fast. Just a few days ago, I was planning our wedding, imagining us starting this new chapter together. Now, I'm staring at her phone, the one I trusted, and seeing messages that make my stomach turn. It all started a couple of weeks ago, when I noticed her acting a little strange. Little things, she'd be quick to hide her phone when I walked into the room, or she'd get tense when I asked about her day. I shrugged it off at first, thinking maybe she was just stressed. Work has been hectic for her lately, and I figured everyone gets moody. But then she started canceling plans last minute, saying she was too busy or just needed some time to herself. That should have tipped me off, but I convinced myself she was just tired or maybe overwhelmed. The real red flags came when her phone buzzed one night, and I happened to glance over. It was a message from Tom. That name had been popping up more often, but I never paid much attention. This time I did. Her screen lit up with a message that read, "Can't wait to see you again. Tonight going to be special." My stomach clenched. I froze, staring at the words. My mind spun faster than it ever had. Who the hell was Tom? Why was she hiding this? I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I kept my cool and just kept scrolling. There were more texts, more photos, intimate ones, I'm pretty sure all exchanged in the last few days. I remember feeling this cold rush of disbelief. My palms sweat, a knot tightening in my stomach. I touched her phone, feeling the slickness of the screen under my fingertips. How long has this been going on? How could she do this? I thought about the last time we'd been truly happy, how we'd planned our future, and now I was looking at proof she'd been planning to leave me all along. She wasn't just cheating. She was planning to walk out the door behind my back with someone she worked with. Tom, of all people. I knew him loosely from work, a guy who always seemed a little too eager to flatter her, but I never suspected a thing. It was like a punch in the gut, cold and brutal. That's when I realized I had to do something. I couldn't just let this slide. I stayed up all night staring at her messages, feeling something dark and hot rising inside me. The betrayal was raw and tangible. I could almost taste it, bitter, metallic. My mind raced through possible ways to respond. I wanted to confront her right then and there, but I knew I needed a plan. I couldn't just blow up in anger. She'd be expecting that. Instead, I had to be strategic, calm, and above all, decisive. Honestly, I don't know if I'm more angry at her or at myself for missing the signs all along. I thought I knew her. Turns out I knew nothing. And now I was left with this knot in my stomach, wondering how I'd ever trust again. But I also knew one thing for sure, I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Not without consequences. I've spent days now piecing together the pieces, planning my move. I've got her phone, yes, but that's only part of what I'm about to do. I want her to see that I'm not some fool she can cheat on and walk out on. I want her to understand that I see her for what she is now, a liar, a thief of my trust, a girl who almost got away with destroying everything we had. This plan I've got in my head isn't just about revenge. It's about reclaiming some shred of dignity, even if it's just for myself. I need her to feel the heat of her own lies, to understand what she's lost. I want her to realize that the man she betrayed isn't going to roll over quietly. Do I regret ever trusting her? Maybe. But what hurts worse is knowing she was planning her exit while I was still dreaming about our future. I don't care if she expects tears, apologies, or begging. That's not what I want anymore. I want her to feel what she's done, to understand the damage she's caused. And I'll make sure she does. I've already started collecting evidence. I took screenshots backed up. Her messages, and I've got her schedule from work. The pieces are coming together. All I need now is to execute the plan. I want her to see that I'm serious, that I won't be played. And I want her to realize she's not just losing me, she's losing everything she thought she had. This is just the beginning. I'll tell you how I set my plan in motion next time. I spent the next few days obsessively planning, replaying every interaction, every glance, every word she said, like I was trying to decode some secret message. The more I dug into her phone, the more I realized how deep her deception ran. It wasn't just a one-time mistake. It was a carefully crafted web that had been spun over weeks, maybe months. All the little lies, the half-truths, they added up, and I was furious with myself for not seeing it sooner. I needed proof, concrete proof, so I started setting up a few things. I made sure her phone was unlocked for a few minutes when she was in the shower, just enough to grab some screenshots. I also secretly installed a simple app that kept track of her messages and calls just in case she tried to delete anything. I didn't want to leave any room for doubt. The more evidence I gathered, the clearer it became. She's been planning to leave me and probably had been for some time. I remember the sick feeling in my stomach when I saw the texts between her and Tom. She was talking about leaving everything behind, about how she couldn't wait to start fresh with him, how she was tired of pretending. That's when I knew I had to confront her, but not yet. I wanted her to think she was safe, that she had control. That's what she was used to: manipulation, secrets, sneaking around. I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. One night I sat her down, pretending everything was normal. I cooked her dinner, lit some candles, and kept my voice calm and steady. "We need to talk," I said, watching her stiffen. She tried to brush it off, to act like nothing was wrong, but I pressed. "I know about Tom," I said softly, watching her face drain of color. Her eyes darted around and she hesitated before answering. "What are you talking about?" She lied, but I knew better. "Don't lie to me," I snapped. "I saw the messages. I know exactly what you've been doing." Her face twitched with guilt, but she tried to cover it up with a shrug. "It's nothing, just some work stuff." I shook my head. "That work stuff is what's been ruining us. I saw the photos, the texts. You've been planning to walk out on me, haven't you?" Her lips parted, but she said nothing. I could see the guilt, the shame, but also the defiance. "I don't want to hear it," I said, voice cold. "You've been lying this whole time, sneaking around behind my back. How long has this been going on? And what the hell was your plan, huh? To leave me at the altar? Because if that's the case, you better come clean now." She looked down, silent. I knew she was trying to find some way to spin it, to make me the villain, but I wasn't about to let her. I'd seen enough. That night I realized I had to take control of the situation. I sat down with a sheet of paper, my hands trembling, and mapped out exactly what I was going to do. I wanted her to feel the full weight of her betrayal. I was going to give her a taste of her own medicine. It was going to be subtle, calculated, but unmistakable. I started by sending an anonymous email to her boss, hinting that she might be distracted at work, that her focus was slipping. I knew she'd suspect someone was onto her, and that would make her nervous. I also made a copy of all her messages with Tom, so I'd have a backup in case she tried to delete anything. I wanted her to know I was watching, even if I wasn't confronting her directly yet. The thrill of knowing I had the upper hand made my chest tight with a strange mixture of satisfaction and rage. I could feel my jaw clenched every time I saw her glance nervously at her phone or pick at her nails, desperate to hide her guilt. She didn't realize I'd been planning all along. This was just the beginning of my revenge, a slow, calculated game that she'd never see coming. I took a deep breath, feeling the adrenaline course through my veins. I was ready. The next step was to make her feel insecure, to give her enough rope to hang herself, and then I'd strike. I wasn't going to let her walk out of this without consequences. Not this time. I could almost taste the final act, and I was determined to see it through. Next, I'll tell you how I finally confronted her with the plan in motion and what happened right after. The day I finally decided to act, I woke up with a strange clarity. The adrenaline was already working its way through my body, making my hands feel slightly numb. I knew I couldn't let her think she was safe anymore. I wanted her to feel that I was on to her, that I was in control of the situation, and that I was about to take back what she had stolen from me. I had spent the last couple of nights preparing everything. The evidence was solid. I had screenshots of her messages, the copies of her calls, her schedule, even some photos I'd secretly taken of her and Tom's texts. I printed out the most incriminating ones, folded them into an envelope. I wanted her to see them in person. I also took her phone, set it into airplane mode, and hid it somewhere she wouldn't find it. I was planning to use it as part of the next step. That evening, I told her I needed to talk again. She looked tense when I sat her down on the couch, the nervous flickering in her eyes, like she already knew what was coming but retained innocence. I kept my voice steady but cold. I know everything, Emma, about Tom, about the plans, and I want to know why. Her face faltered, her lips pressed into a thin line and her hands clenched into fists. It's not what you think, she whispered, but I wasn't buying it. I pulled out the envelope and placed it on the table in front of her. This is what I found, every message, every lie. I want to hear it from you, all of it. She looked stunned for a moment, then her shoulders slumped. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she finally admitted, voice trembling. It just happened. I was unhappy and Tom made me feel alive again. I was planning to tell you, I swear. But then everything got out of control and I didn't know how to stop it. I stared at her, feeling a mixture of rage and disgust. You were planning to leave me, Emma, right before our wedding. You almost did it, didn't you? And I was supposed to just accept it. My voice cracked, but I pushed through. You've been lying for months, playing the perfect wife while secretly planning your escape. You don't understand, she whispered, tears welling up. I was so lonely. You were never there, always working, always busy. Tom was the only person who made me feel wanted again. I didn't want to hurt you, but I couldn't keep pretending everything was perfect. I clenched my fists and took a deep breath. You should have told me, I said through gritted teeth. Instead, you lied, you cheated, and you were going to bolt the moment you got the chance. Well, I didn't plan to just let that happen without a fight. I reached for my phone, opening the camera app and took a quick photo of her face, the shame, the guilt, the fear. That photo was going to stay with me. Look, I said, voice tight, I've decided to give you one chance to come clean right here and now. Tell me everything, all the details. Who else knows? When are you planning to leave? And most importantly, why? She hesitated for a moment, then finally broke down, sobbing. I was going to leave after the wedding, I swear, she blurted out. I didn't want to hurt you, but I felt trapped. Tom made me feel alive and I got carried away. I was stupid. I didn't realize how much I was hurting you. I felt my jaw tighten. I had heard enough. But I also knew I had to be strategic. Confronting her right now was just the first step. I had to make her understand that she wasn't going anywhere, that I was going to make her regret her choices, and that she would pay for her betrayal. I got up slowly, holding the envelope and her phone in my hands. You're lucky I'm a reasonable man, I said, voice dripping with controlled rage. But that doesn't mean I'm going to let you walk out of this unscathed. I've already started planning what comes next. As I walked out of the room, I saw the tears streaming down her face, her body trembling. I didn't feel remorse, only the cold satisfaction that I'd taken back some control. I was ready to execute my revenge, one step at a time. Next, I'll tell you how I revealed my full plan to her and what I did to make sure she felt the consequences. That night, after our tense confrontation, I knew I had to move quickly. Emma was crying, begging, trying to spin some last-minute plea for mercy, but I had already made up my mind. I wasn't going to let her manipulate her way out of this. I kept her sitting there, staring at her with a cold, steady gaze. You've lied, you've cheated, and now it's time you face the consequences, I said softly but firmly. I pulled out the envelope with the screenshots and laid it on the table right in front of her. Here's everything, I said. All the proof I need, and I want to make one thing clear, I don't want you in my life anymore. Her eyes widened, tears streaming down her face as she looked at the evidence. Please just hear me out, she begged, voice cracking. I was stupid. I thought I could fix this. I never meant for it to go this far. I shook my head slowly. You thought you could just cheat and lie your way out of it. No, I've spent days planning this, Emma. You're not walking away from this unscathed. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone, showing her the screenshots I'd taken of her texts. This, I said, is your new reality. Your lies are exposed. You're not just a cheating wife, you're a woman who almost destroyed everything we had, and I'm going to make sure you regret it. Her face twisted in a mixture of shame and defiance. What are you going to do? She asked, voice trembling. Are you really going to ruin everything? I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of what I was about to do. No, I said slowly. I'm going to make sure you understand what you've lost, and it starts with this. I reached into my bag and pulled out a small box. Inside was a device I'd secretly installed on her phone, a GPS tracker. I'd been watching her every move for days, and now I was going to show her what that meant. I've tracked your location, I said plainly. And I know where you've been, I know who you've seen. You're not going anywhere without me knowing. Her eyes widened further, realization dawning. "You've been spying on me," she whispered, voice full of disbelief and anger. "Call it what you want," I said, "but you've been dishonest and I'm not about to let you run away from this." I grabbed her phone and gently slid the device into her purse. "You're not leaving tonight, Emma, not until I say so, and trust me, I'll be watching every step of the way." Her breathing was ragged, her eyes glassy, but she didn't say a word. She simply looked at me, defeated but furious. I could see the flicker of defiance still burning behind her eyes, but she knew she was cornered. That night I made it clear. She was trapped in her own lie and I was about to make her pay. A part of me felt sick, but mostly I felt alive, like I was finally in control after feeling so powerless for so long. I had the evidence, the tools, and the plan to make her regret everything. I wasn't going to just divorce her and walk away. I wanted her to feel the full weight of her betrayal, to understand the damage she had done. As I left her sitting there, trembling, I felt that strange mix of satisfaction and rage. This was only the beginning. I was about to turn her own game against her, and she'd never see it coming. Next, I'll tell you about how I executed the final steps of my plan, and what happened after she realized I was serious. The next morning, I woke up feeling a strange sense of calm mixed with a simmering anger. I knew I had to act fast. Emma was still sleeping when I slipped out of bed. Her face looked peaceful, but I knew better. The guilt weighed on her and I was going to push her until she broke. I wanted her to see that I wasn't bluffing, that I had everything in my control now. I moved quietly around the apartment, gathering the last pieces of my plan. I had her keys, her phone, and the GPS tracker. I also went to the filing cabinet and pulled out the paperwork for divorce. I wanted her to know I was serious about ending this. I was done with her lies. I was sick of feeling like I was just a fool waiting for the other shoe to drop. Once everything was in place, I sat her up slowly, gently waking her with a cup of coffee. She blinked groggily, her eyes bloodshot from crying the night before. I looked straight into her eyes and said, "We need to talk, and I mean really talk now because I'm done pretending." Her voice was hoarse when she whispered, "What do you mean?" "I mean I've made my decision," I said. "You're not walking out on me. Not without paying the price. I've got everything I need, your messages, your location, the divorce papers, and I want to make this clear. I'm not just going to leave things as they are. I want you to feel what I've been feeling, betrayed, humiliated, and powerless. So here's what's going to happen." I pulled out the envelope of screenshots and placed it on the table. "This is your truth, and I want you to understand I'm not letting you get away with this." I paused, watching her face twist in disbelief. "Tonight, I'm going to hand over your keys, your phone, and the divorce papers. I want you to leave, but I want you to remember this moment. Because from now on, you're going to feel every bit of the damage you caused." Her lips trembled and she looked like she wanted to say something, but no words came out. Instead, she just stared at the evidence, at the proof of her lies. The silence stretched thick and uncomfortable. I could feel my skin prickling, my fists clenched at the thought of her walking away after everything she'd done. "I want you to understand something," I said, voice low and steady. "This isn't just about revenge, it's about making sure you never do this again, about you realizing what it means to betray someone who loved you. I've spent days planning this and I'm not going to back down now." I slid the divorce papers across the table as if challenging her to stop me. "Sign these when you're ready, or don't. I don't care anymore. But know this, I'll be outside, waiting with your keys, your phone, and everything else. When you leave, I want you to remember that you lost the one person who cared enough to stay, even when you were trying to throw it all away." Her hands trembled as she picked up the papers, tears pooling in her eyes again. She looked at me, defeated but still angry. "You're doing this because you're hurt," she whispered. "You're angry." "Yeah," I said firmly. "And I'm going to stay angry until you realize what you've done. This isn't just about us anymore, it's about what kind of person you are. And trust me, I won't forget what I've seen. I won't forget the lies." I handed her her keys and her phone, then stepped back. "Take your time. When you're ready, I'll be waiting outside." I turned and walked out the door, feeling the heavy weight lift from my shoulders. I had made my move. Now it was her turn. As I closed the door behind me, I knew I'd done what I needed to do. She might have thought she was the one in control, but I showed her different. I was the one with the power now, and I was going to walk away knowing I'd turned her own betrayal into her biggest downfall. Next, I'll share how I handled the fallout and what I learned from this whole mess. The days that followed were a blur of silence and reflection. I stayed outside her apartment, watching as she came and went, clutching her keys and her phone like they were lifelines. She didn't call or text, which I took as a small victory. I knew I'd made the right move, but it still stung, knowing she was out there, probably feeling the full weight of what she'd just lost. Eventually, I decided to move forward with the divorce. I didn't want to drag this out, not for her or for me. I filed the papers one morning, feeling a strange sense of closure mixed with emptiness. The process was straightforward. The evidence I'd collected was irrefutable. I handed my lawyer everything, knowing this was the end of a chapter I never wanted to open in the first place. I returned to my apartment alone, the silence echoing louder than ever. I felt a strange mix of relief and bitterness. Relief because I'd finally taken control, gotten my dignity back, and cut loose a cheater. Bitterness because I'd loved her, or at least thought I did, and now I was left with nothing but the wreckage of what could have been. Looking back, I see all the warning signs I ignored. The little lies, the evasiveness, her secretive phone habits. I guess I was blind in love, naively believing she'd never do something so cruel. But the truth is, I knew deep down something was off. I just didn't want to face it. The most important lesson I learned through this whole nightmare: never ignore the red flags. Trust your instincts. When something doesn't sit right, don't dismiss it because you're afraid of being wrong. The truth may hurt, but living in denial hurts way more in the long run. As for her, I hope she feels the consequences of her choices. I hope she remembers what she lost, and I hope she never does this to someone else. Because honestly, the worst part isn't the betrayal itself. It's knowing how she destroyed what we had, and how she underestimated the damage she could cause. For me, I don't harbor hatred, but I do carry a hard-earned sense of caution now. I'll love again someday, but I'll never forget the importance of honesty, transparency, and respect. I'll rebuild what I've lost, not just my trust, but my sense of self. I know someday I'll look back at this chapter and understand that sometimes the only way forward is to cut out the poison entirely. So I handed over the keys, signed the paperwork, and watched her walk away for good. It felt like a closure I'd been craving but never truly thought I'd find. I'll admit it's not easy, it never is, but I understand now that some betrayals are so deep. The only way to heal is to walk away, head held high. And I did.